Yeah, most of the real ones, the genuine genius, most of them. Some are, but most ones I know. But it doesn't tell you about the character of the person, and often the people who just sat down and worked hard. First of all, they became very brilliant anyway because they're hard work. But usually, the people who work hard, those are the people. Those are the people who made it. That was generally true, and there are quite a number of giants in Torah learning who said that they weren't so intellectually gifted. They said so, but they never let go. And Hashem blessed them. They understood. My whole life was dedicated, and I believe it. And I tell people all the time, I believe that every normal person can become an outstanding telephone. You don't have to be. A person doesn't have to be above average intelligence. I believe every person who's not chas v'shalom deficient can become an outstanding telephone, because the building blocks of learning are the same for everybody. No, and I can show you this. I can show you on paper. The deepest, most complicated thought in the world is nothing more than lots of little simple thoughts put together. No matter how deep you think something is, no matter how complicated, it's nothing more than lots of simple points. The only thing is to take the time and put one simple point next to another and to work through it. But then you get it. So there's no idea that can't be grasped by a normal person. It just has to be broken down properly and thought about. So it takes work. But that's what. So that's what I was going to say. So it's not necessarily true. The people who decide to make it are generally the people who do. Please go ahead.
Okay, learning sponsors. Year of Learning, friends and family of Arthur Ritholtz, Mordechai Yidl, Ben Baruch Lieber Kohen. Friends and family of Ziggy Besler, Shalom Shraga Ben Dove. Friends of Marvin Weinstein, Mordechai Ozer Ben Israel Aharon. Sarah Albert, memory of her husband, Harab Tzvi Lipa Ben Hillel. Bella and David Adler, memory of her father, Eliyahu Ben Yosef Kohen. Friends of Honey Chafetz, Chana Shoshana Bas Yosef. Friends of Jack Prince, Yaakov Yitzchok Ben Shmuel Dov. Friends of Sandy Davidoff. Shlomis Bat Chaim Eliyahu. Friends of Judy Cohen, Yehudis Liba Ben Abbas Moshe. Friends of Dr. Annette Zafransky, Chana Bas Ephraim Fisher. Gail and Leslie Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Mushka Sprinzer Bat Yosef Chaim Vachava, Hanan Ben Moshe, Eliezer Vachana, Pesha Bashmuel Yitzchok Halevi, Vitzipora, Isser Ben Yoel Moshe HaKohen Vechana. Friends of Linda Katz, Hinda Bas Yehoshua. Lee and Harvey Greenberg, in memory of their parents, Esther Bat Eliezer Yaakov Yosef Ben Abraham, Sarah Rivka Bas Baruch Yehuda B'Tzalel Ben Abraham Alevi. Month of that, all of that was a year of learning. Month of learning, Rhino Susan Podolsky, in memory of his father, Tzvi Ben Pinchas. Week of learning, Michael and Sharon Glass, in memory of his father, Yitzchak Tzvi Ben Yechiel Michal. Lila Bessler, in memory of her mother, Reinville Bas Yechiel. And today is the 3rd, I believe. There is a day of learning today. Elaine and Harold Rin, in memory of her grandfather, Yitzchak Yehuda Ben Meir Tzvi. We thank all of those who sponsor the learning. May all the neshamas have an aliyah.
Okay, so if you in the military, if you have a battle, so even if you win a battle, but then you have to there's mop up. There's stragglers, there's still people, enemy around. You have to mop up. So today is essentially a mop up operation from yesterday. After we established essentially the position and the conclusion, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, that a person can adjust their inheritance among the sons or among the daughters. But now we have various questions. Boy, Rabbi is like this. But Bari, we said the rule up town, we know for sure that the ruler of Yochanan broke up said, look, Yom Hanchilo, the day that he gives his inheritance, so that day, at the end of a person's life, they're dying, they can adjust their inheritance. But we know, but Bari, what about a healthy person? A person's not dying. Okay, what's the rule there? Hey, okay, what's the rule again? He said, listen, he says this one son is going to get it, not the other son or whatever it is, or more or less. Okay, does it work or doesn't it work? Kika Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka gave his rule that the person can adjust the inheritance among the sons or among the daughters, B'shri Mira, is that a person who's on the verge of dying? Okay, the Bar Orasi, because at that moment he's essentially, a person who's in position to give over an inheritance immediately. He's about to go. Abo Babari Lo, but the whole principle doesn't work when a person is healthy. Oh, Dilmar, perhaps I feel Babari not made. The principle works, doesn't matter, even though the Torah B'Yom Manchila may consider the Torah just speaking in the normal circumstances, but any person who is in position to bequeath can adjust the inheritance among the sons or the daughters. He said to him, listen, Toshma, come, I'll bring you a proof.
Why does he say only among the sons and the daughters? Can he give it to anybody?
So we debated that yesterday, and we concluded that he held only to among the sons or among the daughters.
Has to be someone who can inherit
immediately, and not somebody, and even somebody who's going to inherit one removed, he can't give it to. That's the way we concluded yesterday. It was debated, but that was the conclusion. So he can only, if he has a bunch of sons who are on board to inherit, he can decide to give it one as opposed to the others are more or less. And the same thing with daughters, or the mother with the daughters, or the sons, the same thing. If her husband is gone and she's the one giving over the inheritance. Amalei, okay, so he says to him, Toshmakam, I'll bring you a proof. The Amar lo Rebbe Nosson le Rebbe. Now this is an incredible thing. Rebbe Nosson came and challenged Rebbe, the author of the Mishnayos. And he said, Shanisa Mishnasem, you taught your Mishnah. Okay, you in Eretz Israel taught because he was from Babel. You taught your Mishnah, we're going to see in a second, by Ksubos, okay, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. You taught a Stam Mishnah in Ksubos, just like what? Just according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, and not according to all opinions. Why? It's not because we learned the Ksubos. I say Ksubos. It's not because we learned Ksubos. But get this. I just want to let me just tell you. We have a rule. When a man gets married, he writes in the Ksuba, and you'll see even if he doesn't write it, it's assumed. It's called the Tanai based in. The rabbis obligate him no matter whether you write it or whether you don't write it. He's obligated these things. So a man agrees first of all that the daughters, he writes to his wife, your daughters, they're going to be, if he dies, the estate will support them until they get married. That's number one. And the reason is because that way we encourage fathers to give dowries to their daughters, because a father's going to be worried. He gives a large dowry to his daughter. In the end, it's going to leave his family. But if he knows, for example, that the woman's ksuva, let's say she dies, so her ksuva goes to who? Her husband. When the husband dies, then the wife's sons, as opposed to the husband's sons, will get the mother's ksuva. They'll all share equally in the general estate, but the mother's sons will get it. So the grandfather, the mother's father, way back when she was getting married, he's more generous giving a dowry to the daughter because he knows it's going to stay in his bloodline. It's going to go to his daughter. Even if she dies first and her husband dies second, it's still eventually going to go to her sons. So he feels good. That encourages the father. And second thing is, that what's that? I just want to remember one thing. 1 second, please. Okay, we'll come to the second. When I come to the second thing in a minute about the boys, but there are two conditions in the ksuba. One for protecting the daughters, the wife's daughters, and one protecting the sons. We'll see in a minute. Okay, so take a look. He says, take a look. You when you wrote the Mishnah in Ksubos, you wrote it clearly only according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan Broka, not according to everybody. Why? He said because you learned the Tanami learned lo kasav lo benin dichrin benin dichrin dahavi loch minoi. He said, okay, inun yartun, okay, kesef ksuvasich yoter achol okay and dimacheon. sons that you have with me, okay, are going to inherit your ksuva, okay, more than the portion that they get with their brothers that I had with another wife. They're going to have an advantage. They'll share the whole estate, but they'll get your ksuva exclusively. So he says, even though he didn't write it down, Chayav, okay, he's still obligated to that. Why? Because that's a condition of basin. Once it's a condition of basin, whether you wrote it or you didn't write it, they have that right. Okay, so the sons of the that he has with the woman get her ksuva and and don't share it with the sons that he had with another wife. So okay, so therefore he said to him, he said, look, you wrote your mission only according to one opinion. Pardon me. I'm just waking up 1 second here, please. Oh, so he says what? He said, okay, so it's as if it's written now. That halacha can only follow Rabbi Yochanan and Broka. Why? Because Rabbi Yochanan and Broka hold that a person can manipulate his inheritance among his sons. So the fact that he's going to manipulate the inheritance and favor the sons that he had with this wife over the sons he had with another wife show you, like Rabbi Yochanan and Broka, that amongst the sons, the father can manipulate the proportions of the inheritance. So he said, you wrote your Mishnah only because you're Yochanan and Broka. And then remember, we're trying to answer a question, does this rule of Rabbi Yochanan and Broka work when a person's healthy? So Rebbe answered it back to defend himself, and he said, no. He says, I wrote according to everybody, and he said, Yisvun Tanat, don't learn the word in the Mishnah, Yirsun, that they're going to inherit it, which means what? That they manipulate inheritance, but rather what? Yisvun, they'll receive as a gift. So that we know you can do anything you want as a gift. Everybody can do anything they want. It has nothing to do with the rule of Rabbi Yochanan and Broka. Well, Amar Rebbe, and then Rebbe said, you know what? Yaldu Sabi. I was immature. I made a silly mistake. Okay, and I spoke arrogantly or quickly to Yosan Abavli. I never had to say that. I could have defended myself the way it was written. I'd have to say, oh, it's written in a different way. Why? Oh, the Kaimalon, why? Because I could have told you like this, but in different low talking Mushabde. Okay, since we have a rule that the male sons that he promises to the wife that they're going to get her ksuva and not share with the other sons, they only get the ksuva from free properties that are still in the hands of the estate when the father dies, and not ones that he sold. If it was really true what I said, that the correct teaching that it was a gift, a Milo talking Mishabde, why don't they collect from encumbered properties? Once it's a gift, it's like any loan or anything else, and they should be. And therefore what? So Elasmarmino, year since 9, I have to say I myself that the correct teaching was really what? He says they're going to inherit it alone without the other brothers. So you see what and therefore what at a first glance, so then Rabbi Nassim was right. It's only because you have broken, but I could have answered, it's no problem. Man shut but I should have okay, and it's fine. Okay, and therefore the Gemara learns man shamaslay the islay high svara. Okay. So he says what? He says you're right. And at that point, he says I have to say he's right. And really, what I taught it only according to Yochanan Broka. You're right. But here's the main point: regardless of whether you're on Rabbi Nassan's side or his side, however you look at it, man or like the answer, like the question, man shamaslay this lay high svara. Who did we hear that there's such a thing that a person can give his inheritance to manipulate for himself? Rabbi Yochanan Broka. And what were they talking about? They were talking about when did the guy make this condition? When he got married. In normal case, we don't assume that a normal marriage is a person about to die. We don't think he's on his deathbed. Normal people, the normal case of a guy getting married, he's not dying. So therefore, what? And therefore, we see Ushmamina Afila Babari. Therefore, we see that both of them, neither of them disagreed. Not Rabbi Nassan and not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Both of them were assuming that a guy could say, according to Yochanan Broka, they are going to inherit, and he's saying it when he's getting married, when he's healthy. So you see that this rule of Yochanan Broka is not dependent upon a person being on his deathbed. It works even when he's alive. That was the beginning. Okay, so therefore we proved our point from this debate of Rabbi Nassan. Now, but the Gemara is not done. The Gemara wants to analyze. The Gemara is not happy with what it learned. Rav Papa Abaya. Rav Papa said to Abaya, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Bein lamanda amar yisfun." Whether you say that the Mishnah should read that the father gave it to the male sons as a gift, so to speak, in his lifetime, Ubein lamanda amar yirsun, or according to the one he said what that they're going to inherit it, and it's Rav Yochanan Broka. However you look at it, okay, you can't sell things that don't exist. The afilu Rabbi Meir, even according to Rabbi Meir, the Amar are the makna davar shalom. Even Rabbi Meir holds that you can sell things that don't exist. Hani mili the davar sheyesh olam. You can sell things that don't exist to somebody that does exist. And how can he tell the wife before the boys are born, the sons that I have with you are going to receive what okay, you can sell what doesn't exist, but you can't sell what doesn't exist to somebody who doesn't exist. I can sell what doesn't exist to somebody who's there. And he says, look, the stuff that's going to come later, I'm selling you. Forget about what he's selling. The recipient doesn't exist. He's telling the wife, the babies they're going to have are going to get it. You can't sell what doesn't exist to somebody who doesn't exist.
The more thing is talking about the case of where you have a tree, you're selling the
I'm
dates.
saying,
Yes, the dates don't exist.
yes, but I'm saying here we're talking about something else. That what you're saying is also true, and some people read that, but here we're talking, listen, even if I can sell something that doesn't exist, I can sell the fruit, the fruit's not there, but I can't sell what's not there to someone who's not there. The babies are some read like the way you just suggested, it's another reading. But we're simply here. You can't sell things that don't exist to somebody who doesn't exist. The person's not even born yet. How do you gonna have babies? Okay. According to Rabbi Meir, it's an argument. According to the rabbis, you can't sell what doesn't exist. According to Rabbi Meir, you can sell what doesn't exist. But even according to Rabbi Meir, it says you could sell something. Look, the fruit, what's going to grow, I'm selling. Okay, but you have to sell to somebody who exists. You're going to sell what doesn't exist to somebody who doesn't exist. What's going on over here?
You can sell futures, but not futures to
no person. No. Exactly right. Here, if somebody doesn't exist, I'm selling futures to your future children. What are you talking about? Where do you send the mail? where do you send the contract? Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay. But to sell to somebody doesn't exist, you can't do it. Ella says, therefore what? So he says, it's Avakasha. Ella tonight based in Shani. So listen, he's pointing out a very important point. He's gonna throw a monkey wrench here. He said, you have to say what? So why does it work? Because it's tonight based in the rabbi said it. And you know the rules of the rabbis have control over money. Hefker based in Hefker. The rabbis can confiscate any money, take it from one person, the word to another person. That's a power that they have. They're there for what? So that's the reason. Why does it work? It only works. It doesn't work by any normal mechanism. It works. What's the mechanism it works by? It works by the mechanism of what? Of tonight based. The based can do what they want. It says and Hachanami here too. Tonight based in Shani. Here I can say to you, no, you know what? Maybe what you said is not true. It's not true that according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, he can do it when he's healthy. Maybe according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka's rule, he can only do it when he's dying. But this is tonight based is magic. It doesn't make a difference. So therefore you have no proof. Amar Lei. So Abai said back, no. He said, why? He says, you're making a mistake. He said they still had a proof. And why is that? The fact that he chose the language, even if it's magic of based in, it's a Tanai based in, but the fact that he chose the language of what? Of they shall inherit, okay, and not the language of gift, that still shows you what? That we hold that it works according to the principle of Yochanan ben Broka. Then Abai said, my defense is no defense. I'm wrong. My defense is no defense. He said what I said was wrong. And why? I just want to check one thing. Right. So my defense was wrong. He said, what I said is not true. Why? It's not, because we learned the same Mishnah continues and it says, Lo Kosav law, this is what I tried to tell you before and I didn't tell you. Lo Kosav law, B'nei Nukvin, Dahavi Lichiminai. And if he didn't write in the Ksuba, female children that I have from you, female children that you bear from me, okay, they will dwell in my house and they will be supported by my possessions until they are married to men. So if he didn't write it down, okay, it doesn't matter, even though it wasn't written. Okay, he's still chayav, he's still obligated. Why the estate's still obligated? Shutznai basin again, because that's a condition of basin, and whether he wrote it or didn't write it, it should have been written. And therefore, it's understood that every ksuva implies that when the man dies, that his estate will continue supporting the daughters that he had with the wife until they get married. The Habi law, okay, now, and that's true, okay, and since that's obligated,
And there it's considering, and the Mishnah continues the zep matana. So remember, the Mishnah spoke about the rule of the male sons inheriting the ksuba, and the female daughters, her female daughters getting supported by the state, and said lezeb the matana. This one, okay, the one for the daughters, okay, is a gift. Lezeb Yerusha, and the one to the boys is what? Is a Yerusha, is an inheritance, okay? Like we said, the kol, okay, the kol lezeb Yerusha, lezeb matana, and whenever, remember, we have a rule, anything that we learned earlier, especially going to buy it, that anytime you intertwine the language of gift and inheritance, the gift and inheritance, even according to the rabbis who are against Rabbi Yochanan Broka, everyone agrees that the language of gift overrides the language of inheritance. But even though he said the word inheritance, it's really a what? It's really a gift. And therefore, you have to say here that since the gift to the girls was said gift, and the boys said inheritance, but it said gift and inheritance in the same language, just we learned last week. So therefore, what he gave to the boys was really what? Was really a gift, even though he used the word inheritance. So you can't prove anything about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakka's law because it's not really a rule of inheritance. He says my defense was no good. It doesn't work. You can't. We can't prove. We can't say that that was really inheritance. And we learned that the inheritance rule works when the person's healthy, because in the end, it's really not an inheritance at all. It's really a gift. So of course, gifts work when a person's healthy. Okay. The east, the Amar of Abaya. Some people say, okay, so Rabbi Chumi said, some people say, he said, one second. How are you so sure that this follows the principle that we learned that when you use in the same breath the language of gift and the language of inheritance, that even the inheritance language means a gift? Because this is not speaking about the person giving it, saying it in one breath. You're talking about the based in. You're saying that when we write Niksuba, since he writes in Niksuba, the boys will get this, the girls will get this. And even though the boys' language is the language of inheritance, and the girls' language is the language of gift, and gift overrides. 1 second. He says, these were these were rules that Basin said. How do you know one Basin said it in one breath? It's as if it was one thing. Maybe one Basin made the rule of boys inheriting the ksuba of the mother, and one basically made the rule of girls getting supported from the state until they get married. How do you know? So how can you even consider it like one breath? And maybe it's two courts in general. Dilma betrayed Beidin Iska. Maybe it was two separate Bate Din that did it. So the Gemara says, nah. He says, no, don't worry. He says, Abaya's challenge to himself is good. Osaka Daite, don't think so. The Katani Beresha, since we learned at the beginning of the Mishnah, this is what Rav Lazar Azariah, the day that they appointed him to be the head to be the Nasi, this is what the Drashi said, B'Kerem B'Yavna. And the place was called Kerem B'Yavna. Kerem B'Yavna was the Beis HaMedrash in Yavna, where the students sat in rows like a vineyard. So it was called the vineyard in Yavna. It wasn't a vineyard; it was the yeshiva. You understand? It was the Beis HaMedrash, but it was called the vineyard in Yavna because they sat around like in rows, like a vineyard. So he taught there. He said, Banim Yeshu Babana Shuzogu Izono. He said the sons inherit, okay, and the daughters are supported. Ma Banim En Yoshim Elachabisa Sabiyah. Just like the sons only inherit after the father died. The daughters also only are get supported after the father died, but we can never force the father to support his daughters. We may say terrible things about him, but we can't force him legally to support them. So now watch. But here's the main point. But he showed me that the two things are compared one to the other. Just like the boys only get the inheritance after he dies, the girls only get the support after he dies. If you say what, like Abaya did say, and the assumption was one basin that made both takanas, so you can learn from one to the other. They were put in that position. The same basin made those laws. But if we say what, that they were two separate, but they did. How can you learn one enactment from another? The two Bati Dim were talking in two different contexts. Mimai, okay. Say, how do you know that? How do you know? Okay. Okay. So therefore, how can they learn from what the girls rule for the boys rule? Okay. Okay. How can you do it? So, pardon me. How do we learn one from the other? So you see clearly, it must be really like Abaya said that it's all considered as the equivalent of one breath. And really, you learn the girls takana from the boys takana from the girls takana, girls takana from the boys, and the boys from the girls. It's all one. It's, so to speak. It's all one. It's all one breath. And not boys, the girl goes to the boys, and it's all one breath. And therefore, just like the girls are a language of a gift, the boys, even though their inheritance was a language of inheritance, it's really with the rule of what? Of a gift. And you can learn nothing about Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. I said, Mimai. He says, how do you know you have to say that it was really one and one based in, and you learn from one to the other. Even what he said, maybe it was like this. Maybe it was two different Batei Ubeidina Basra taken Ubeidina Kama. And the second based in fashioned its takana after the first based in. Why? So that people in general shouldn't do it. Therefore, what? You still cannot prove the point. I want to just take a moment with a little advertisement here from our sponsor, and I hope somewhere later down the line, I would love to, if you guys want, there's a time for these things. I've said this to you many times, but I don't know if it's ever made sense to you. The bulk of understanding Gemara is not about the content of the Gemara. It's not what you think. And that's why most people have a hard time learning Gemara, because they focus on the content. The main object in learning Gemara is to follow the argument. If you follow the argument, the content pretty much comes along for free. But if you follow the content, it's very hard to understand the Gemara. What I just said is profoundly important. The content, even though the content is the knowledge that you're getting, but it's the argument that really matters. And everything on once upon a time, the Chafetz Chaim had a very beautiful Hebrew. He really did. Beautiful Hebrew. Not everybody spoke beautiful Hebrew. He did. His Hebrew was beautiful. So somebody once said to him, wow, you must have spent a long time studying Hebrew to have such a beautiful Hebrew. So he said, no. He says, I didn't spend a long time. This person says, how did you get such a beautiful Hebrew? So he said, I have a grocery. He had a grocery store. Right. So he said, if you come to my grocery, he says, if you come in to buy a fish, he says, I take the fish, and I weigh it, and I put it in a bag, and I charge you for the fish and wish you a good day. He said, but if you come into my grocery store to buy a bag, he says, I take the bag and I charge you for the bag. You buy the fish, the bag comes for free. He says, you buy a bag, I charge you for the bag. And he says, it's the same thing with Hebrew. He says, if you want to learn Hebrew by itself, you're going to have to put in a lot of effort. You're going to have to pay, for the bag, for Hebrew. He says, but if you learn Torah, he says, then you get the bag for free. You get the Hebrew for free. He says, that's what he says. You'll get the Hebrew for free. And I'm telling you, and I've been doing this all my life. If you learn the way that I suggest people learn, and I can help it. So it's not in this context. It's the wrong place. In the right context, if you learn to just follow the argument, you'll get the content pretty much for free. You're not going to learn ever without working. It's never going to happen. But you get the content pretty much for free because the argument holds it together. You see, you ever notice that a story is not so hard to tell? It's not so hard to memorize a story. Why? Because one event, so to speak, intertwines, leads to another. So it's much easier to tell a story, to memorize a story, than it is if I tell you to memorize the phone book. Yeah. Memorize the first 50 names in the phone book. Very hard. If I tell you to memorize a story or a joke, it's not so hard to remember. So the same thing over here, if you put your main effort into the argument and let everything else hang on, you'll be amazed at how much you know. And I can show this. I've been teaching all my life. I can show you how to do it. But today's Gemara, even I also had to remember. I'm a little sleepy, but you have to remember. But mainly, if you follow the argument, everything else hangs together. If you try and follow the content, you're essentially you're in the Yiddish they have an expression. You have an expression. It's walking up straight walls. You're defying gravity. Are you nuts? You want to try and walk up the wall? You're defying gravity. It's good if you're a spider. It's not going to work for humans. If you want to remember the Gemara by memorizing the content, it's very, unless you're a genius, you're probably going to have a hard time. You understand? But if you remember the argument, everybody can get the content. It's very important what I'm telling you. That's the way it's done. That's the real Shaklavitari. To remember the argument, that's what you have to really follow. What's happening? Who's on first? Who's on second? Like with the routine. You know who's on first, who's on second. Then you follow everything. That's how you know. That's how you know. I'm really serious. That's how you know. Okay. Anyway, that's where we're up to. Okay.
So what do you say? You're going to teach that?
I said, believe me, if you have people who are really interested, I'd love to. We have to find a special contact, but you're not going to get it without work, but you can get it. And I'm telling you something. Once you get, I'm just going to tell you this, and I just from love, when I was 20, When I really was 20, he makes fun of me with them. But when I really was 20. So I worked very hard in the Gemara, and it took me a long time. And there were people who didn't want to learn with me. They said I'm too slow. Now, I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm fast. I'm way faster than all those people. So many times faster than them. Not that that's the goal, but because I understood it from the Kishkas up, in the end, I was like multiple times faster than everybody else, than those guys. You understand? Because when you know it from the Kishkas, it hangs together, and then it just goes like that. It's a different story because that's what holds it all together. It's a very important. So yeah, we have to find the right context and interest. That's the way it's done, and it works. I've been doing this all my life. All my life, it works. I know it works. I've done it. I've done it with people a million times. It works. And that works with that means I'm talking about you want to study the works of the Vilna Gaon and the Noda B'Yehuda and all the most complicated books in the world. It's the same thing. It's all the same. But I repeat what I said before. The most complicated thing in the world is nothing more than very simple things put together. And my Rebbe used to tease. He used to say, if you can't explain what you're learning to anybody on the spot, you don't know what you're talking about. That's what he said. No matter where you are, in the middle of the most complex argument, if you can't stop and say, listen, this is what we're talking about, and this is where we're up to, then you don't know what you're talking about. He expects you to know where you are. That's if you got it, you got it. And that's what I'm telling you. That's how it's done. And the other way, I feel bad for people. I couldn't do it either. You just sit there, try to bang your head against the wall. You understand? And just remember, and just take the facts and hold them together. You never get it. And you know what? And what's worse is even if you do memorize it, you still won't be a Talmid Chacham. You'll be a donkey carrying a book. Why? Because you don't know what they're talking about. You'll know every word that they said, and you still won't know what they said. I'm serious. You know Aldous Huxley, the famous writer?
Who?
Aldous Huxley.
Yeah.
Huxley. So one his book, Island. So it opens like this. I'm not late, don't worry. So it opens like this. The parents, they got their big breakthrough. They're gonna subliminally educate their kid. They get these tapes, this back in the old days, but the 50s, anyway, So they get these tapes and they're gonna play them all night, and subliminally they're gonna put it in the kid's head. So the first night it's about the Amazon. It starts at the tape says the Amazon River is the longest river in the world. It starts at this place and ends at this place, and the whole night, the whole Amazon, and it plays in his head all night long. The Amazon, blah, 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 blah. They can't wait this way, and they can't wait till Johnny gets up. He gets up, washes his face, brushes his teeth, comes down, put his Cheerios in the bowl, pouring out the milk. The mother says, "Hi, Johnny. Good morning. Good morning, Mom. How you doing? Really good. How you feeling? Good, Mom. Sleep well? Yeah, great. Johnny, what do you think is the longest river in the world?" "I don't know. It beats me, Mom." So you don't know? Why don't you just try and think about it for a minute? Okay. What's the longest river in the world? "I don't know." Did you ever hear anything like the Amazon? He said, I was like, whoop, click. He goes, the Amazon is longer river in the world. Starts to this, but it goes, yeah. It has it right. So many cubic meters per second. And I don't know. He finishes, click, it goes off. She says, "Oh, so what's the longest river in the world?" He said, "Beats me. I don't know." It's not gonna, that's the opening of the book. Yeah, that's how Island opens. That's the beginning of the book. I think it's Island. If it's not another book, that's Island. That's how it opens. It's not going to work. You understand? It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. You got to get it. But when you get it, you get it. Anyway, so okay, in the right time. But today's Gemara is really an example of that. I'm saying, and I say we're here before I came here in the morning. When I was looking at this Gemara, what do you think I was doing? But I was following the argument. That's the main point. Okay, now, okay. Amar Yehuda Shmuel. Yehuda Shmuel says this. Okay, now we have some other laws that there's some similar points. Okay, over here. Amar Yehuda Shmuel, he says, "Hakosev kol nechasav d'isha." This is an incredible law. It's there's no way to understand except that the rabbis did this, and the Gemara calls it divrei nevios. This is pure prophecy. They don't know how the rabbis are going to interpret the language of the paper or the utterance against what it said. That we know that this is what people are doing. So he says, a kosim called the chassav lishta. If a guy gives as a gift all of his possessions to his wife, if he said, "I'm giving everything to my wife except for this, which goes to the to the boys who are supposed to inherit it, then we accept what he said. But if he just ignores the boys entirely, they forget the kids, and I'm giving everything to the wife, he says, while he's alive, he said everything as a gift, it's clear that nobody does that. Okay. Lo asa ala pitropa, we were sure that all he meant to do was to appoint her as an overseer, and he wants them to give her the respect, okay, and she's going to run it, and they will inherit it when they grow up, okay, and they'll inherit her. They're gonna get the inheritance. All he meant was what was they're gonna get the inheritance, and they're gonna get his inheritance. She just meant they respect her while she manages. He wants her to manage the place. Okay, it's shocking, but that's what we're gonna learn. The rabbis they themselves call divin neviah. The rabbis say we know that's what he means, even though he said that's what he said. Pshita, okay, libno gadol. Okay, now it's obvious. Let's say the same thing. Let's say he took the oldest son, okay, the most grown son, and he said, okay, said that he gives everything to him, doesn't give anything to anybody else. It's clear that what he wants to do, again, he wants to make him an overseer of the state because the other kids are small, and he wants them to give the respect, okay, and to follow through. Remember, there's even a mitzvah, keep it, just like there's a mitzvah to honor your father's wife, there's also a mitzvah to what? To honor the big brother. Okay, now Noah Katon, but what about that? We know the first of all is we know. What if he writes everything as a gift to the little kid? Well, that's going to be strange. Is he appointing the little kid as the manager of his fairs? You know, it's going to be hard to say he wants them all to honor the little kid. So what's the rule there? Itmar Rav Chanilai by Idi Amar Shmuel Afilu Beno Katan. Okay, Muta Barisa. Even the little kid is in the crib. Okay, there's room to say that the father even there wanted him, and that they should give that kid honor for whatever reason. Pshita. Now the Gemara says what? Okay, one thing that's completely obvious is this: Libno. Okay, when he gives it to one kid, okay, he gives it to one kid among the sons, okay, or he gives it to somebody else, okay. Both these laws are obvious. Now, I'm reading it. There are other ways to do it. Some people learn to the kid and someone else, but I'm reading it the other way. Okay, this way, one simple way. He gives everything. He gives everything to his son. Alternatively, he gives everything to what? To someone else. Okay, even though he has kids. Okay, in both of those cases, okay, how like this. Acher, okay, b'matana, okay, he meant to give the other one as a gift to the other person, but not to his sons, okay, because it'd be as a gift, okay, and it goes as a gift, and it doesn't go to the sons, okay, because if he meant for somebody else to be an overseer, he would have said so. When he gives everybody to somebody else, he can say, "Oh, he meant them to be an overseer." All those other things that somebody in the family wants them to oversee, to get respect. If he said somebody else, he meant somebody else. It's a gift. It's over. Ubano, but when it comes to the case of his son, like we said, the one son, he meant to say what? Apitropis. He just meant to say what? If he cuts everybody else out and gives it to, and as a gift, remember, not Yerusha. We're not talking about Yerusha here. We said a different law. He meant him to be an overseer. Skip the parentheses, okay? He says, Ish, okay, Ishto. Okay, Arusa. What if he gave everything to his wife, but the wife, not like we said before, but the wife is only what? Betrothed. She's only the first level of marriage. He did Kiddushin, but not Nisuin. He hasn't consummated, so she hasn't really been consummated to be his wife. Okay, the Ishto, okay, Agrusha, or he gives everything to his divorced wife. Okay, both you clearly you can't say that he's appointing her as an overseer because she's not neither of them are really the wife, and therefore what? It must be what? That he's giving them actually, okay, but matan, he's actually giving them a gift. Ibailu, but they had this query. Labas Eitzel Habanim. Okay, what about when he gives it to the daughter when they're sons? Does he want to make her an overseer? Okay, V'isha Eitzel Achem, or wife. Okay, when a wife, okay, when he has no sons or father, but his brothers are there, is he trying to make her an overseer for his brothers or not? Okay, the Isha Eitzel B'nei Abal, or let's say he gives everything to his wife as a gift. Okay, but when he has sons from another wife, but no sons from her. In all those cases, what's the case? Is he giving her a gift, or is he just giving her honor, or she's too separated to say he's giving her honor and an overseer? Ravina Mishmei the Rava, so we have two different rulings. But Ravina said in the Rava, Bekulu, in all these 5 cases, Lokana, all those cases, okay, she doesn't acquire it as a gift. He only meant to make her an overseer. Lebar Meishto Arusa Meishto Grusha. The only case where he really gave her a gift was when she was only the first level of marriage or divorce. That he's not making an overseer. Avira, Mishmei the Rabbi, I said no. But Kulu Kani, in all those cases, it's really a gift. She's not an overseer of the bar, except for these two cases where he is making an overseer. What? The Isha Eitzel Achin, if he gives it all to his wife and his brothers would be the inheritors, the Isha Eitzel B'nei Abal, or it gives it to his wife and they're only sons of the husband and no sons with her, okay, they said it is a svara that what? He's saying it is a svara that she's an overseer and it's not a gift. Okay, and the Gemara doesn't explain over here, but we said it. Okay. Yeah.
He doesn't have a net worth big enough to cover, what he put in there.
Yeah, so that's when they nothing to do. I mean, you can't get from the estate what's not there.
Do the two lists for the daughters come before the,
Oh, I don't remember. That's all Mefurish. I don't remember. I can't say by heart. I don't remember. But those laws are stated. I don't remember them by heart, but they're there for sure. It's all there. Usually the girls get first. I think Memphis says the girls get. In fact, says the girls get first, and the boys go begging. You know.
Yeah. I remember that.
That's what we do say. I should have said it. We actually, I think, Bob brings it up here. All right, good. Both sides. No, we finish early, so we can go out and see a movie.
It's after 10 already.
It's after 10.
What about the shit that you keep promising us?
So I'm saying that has to happen. It has to be. Well, I'm happy to do it. I'm serious. You have to have a group of men that really want to do it and will be consistent, and we have to figure out the time. I'll be happy to do it. Yeah, let's get a group of people that want it, and we'll make a time. I'll be happy to do it. But that's hard work, my boss. It can't be a half commitment.
How much time?
We have to decide here. If we have a group of men that want, and we can decide over a certain amount of time and work on it. I'll be happy to. I'm not just going to empty words, but we have to have a group that says yes, and I'll be happy to do it. And you'll see it's very rewarding. It really works.
just when you come to a take this,
Yeah. What about a Teku?
it's not rewarding.
But even Teku has rules, by the way. We have rules of what to do when we have a Teku. It's not like we just walk around in a stupor. We have rule. We have chumrah by money. We have run rule by this. We have money. We go to the muhsak. We also have a mode of rules of behavior when we came to an impasse. There's rules of an impasse.
When I first
Yeah.
because I haven't seen him this year, and I'm so excited till I got to the take. We didn't take.
Yeah.
You mean,
Yeah. What do you mean? Hey, what is it? This is not what I pay my money for. What do you mean you don't know? There was a guy. There was a guy that stayed home. The Talmud Chacham. He got a job as a rabbi, and the next morning they said you're fired. I said I'm fired. I've been here one day. They said we passed your house at 2 a.m. last night. We saw you sitting with a candle and learning. He said you saw me sitting and learning in the middle of the night, and you're firing me for being the rabbi. Why? He said, we don't want rabbis learning. We want a rabbi who knows.
You never had a problem with Pinto, not in Scranton. We had what we learned was takeout. It's not to go out for a meal, not to eat something.
it's really.
Look at the
That's why McDonald's is so.
post-game about the problem. They have to decide what the thing anyway.
I remember someone told me I don't know if it's the Gemara, the Medrash, and after Moshe Rabbeinu learned the whole Torah from the Kodesh Baruch Hu. He says, "Listen, what Torah?" He said, "Yes, Rabban."
Many years.
Right?
Rabbi, if you learn with too much depth, you're going to ruin the whole idea of Daf Yomi.
No, that's right. That's what you're right. But that's why I said here there's two different contexts. Daf Yomi is one context.
Right.
You're right. You're right. But you'll see that even Daf Yomi will change drastically from this kind of insight. You'll see because you'll approach it a little differently. I'm not saying you're not doing good now, but it can be enhanced. You'll gain a great deal. Have enhanced understanding.
I went for your time.
Yeah.
Also, I got out of that feeling that when I go hear somebody
What
speak,
do you think?
they start calling.
To do it to the
tomorrow,
left?
back tomorrow.
You've heard of it.
I sit there and go,
Man,
"Oh,
what the
yeah."
world we
Do you know
used to
something?
go
There's a
to the
medrash.
left
It says
from our
all the
thing
learning
where,
we do in this world.
uh,
What's it
with
for?
the
So the
sign.
next world will know what
Take
page
the
they're
right.
on. They'll know where they're up to. Everything you do is just prep it. At least you'll follow. You know where they are. You'll be in a position to say, "Oh yeah, I know where that is." Right.
I don't know if I know it, but I remember it.
I can tell you I don't know what to. I remember when first year learning Mishnayos in the Hebrew Day School in Scranton, I couldn't understand why we have Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. One of them is right. So why mention both if you can
Yeah.
only one? I mean, to a child, it wasn't made clear to us by that we have to know both opinions.
Yeah.
But basically,
And you can't, you'll see, you can't even understand the conclusion. If you don't know the argument, the two sides,
Yeah.
you'll never understand the conclusion. It's impossible.
Explain to a kid why you put the cereal in first and then the milk. Why do you put the milk in first and then the cereal? Right? But it's messier. It's the other way. That's why you have to know both sides. I was saying, my good fear said when you have this malfocusing, they have in mind, how would the halacha change? Based on this and that.
Exactly.
That's how you
Exactly.
understand the
That's it.
argument.
They understand that. Right? This way, they will come out. Exactly. All right, Rabbi. Okay.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you. Hi, have a wonderful day. You too. Hi.
so the answer is that Noah was an Navi. That we don't know what the question is yet, but the answer is because he was an Navi, he knew what to do.
How do you know you weren't allowed to play cards at the table?
How do you
Good, Noah said on the deck.
How do we know? What's the
How
answer?
do you know?
How do you know that you weren't allowed to play cards at the
I
table?
don't know the answer.
Because Noah sat on the deck. Okay.
You dropped the paper, Marty.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, somehow, despite the extra hour, I'm still tired.
Yeah. I always felt you needed another extra hour the next night too.
So tonight at 5:15, will be our official job on for tonight. Oh, okay, good. Well,
You're in charge?
no, I'm just, I'm really not job by anyone. I'm just,
You're the rabbi.
I'm supposed to give it to our Torah.
That's it. That means you're in charge.
So the answer is that, to the question, whatever the question will be, is Noah was a Navi.
Okay.
Because otherwise it doesn't make sense. How would he
What doesn't make sense?
know which animals could be used for carbonos? How could he possibly